The Toronto Raptors are making moves. As news has come out, the Toronto Raptors have signed Joe Wieskamp to a multi-year contract. And for people that aren't familiar, Joe Wieskamp played in multiple 10-day stints with the Raptors this season, and he's a knockdown three-point shooter and has a 42-inch vertical. So we'll discuss what his signing means for the team, as well as the president of basketball operations for the LA Clippers throwing some shade at what looks to be Fred VanVleet and potentially Kyle Lowry, as well as Terrence now available on the buyout market. So lots of stuff to break down. Without further ado, let's jump to the first topic of discussion. First thing we're taking a look at is the Raptors signing Joe Wieskamp to a multi-year deal. Now, Wieskamp is a guy that a lot of Raptors fans were very encouraged by for his first stints with the Toronto Raptors, because he's a dude that fills a serious need as a three-point shooter for this roster. And the Raptors last night had their first game post-trade deadline with the addition of Jakob Poeltl. Now, Poeltl was in foul trouble and didn't get a lot of minutes, mixed of foul trouble and just being new to the system. But honestly, from the eye test for the first 43 minutes of that game, everything looked really good. Jakob Poeltl was setting some really nice screens. His help defense is, you can see visually on the defensive end, right? The effect that he was having, just being that rim stopper. And when we were getting blown by, because we still run aggressive, on-ball defense, Poeltl was able to, stop a couple dunks, get in the lane, tip some passes, didn't technically have any blocks, but affected a lot of those shots around the rim in his short stints out there on the court. So I was very pleased with how he played. And then obviously things fell apart in the last 5 minutes of the game when Walker Kessler went nuclear. Yak was only on the court for about a minute of that. So it's, they fell apart. It was a disheartening game. Unfortunate react. We were pretty sad on the Raptors live reaction last night. But, I'm still encouraged about this team with Jakob Poeltl. Now with the addition, as news has come out from Blake Murphy today, the Raptors have signed Joe Wieskamp to a multi-year contract. This, if executed correctly by Nick Nurse, could help fortify our bench. Now, why? Well, if you look at Joe Wieskamp's stats, it's a very extremely minuscule sample size for him, but 4.5 points per game. But the three-point percentage, look at it. 75% from behind the three-point line, and obviously there's no chance in the world that that's sustainable if he's getting any bit of run for this Raptors squad, but he is a knockdown three-point shooter. He's able to hit threes for the Raptors 905, his game down there, and with the Raptors, was able to knock down some tough ones when he was out there on the court. So he's a guy that can come in and offensively space the floor for this team. For guys like Scottie Barnes, Pascal Siakam, now Jakob Poeltl, right? He can come in off the bench and hopefully take the load off of Gary Trent Jr. for Fred VanVleet, who we know Nick Nurse can play a lot of minutes out there. And one thing I was also encouraged by in last night's game is Scottie Barnes was getting a lot of the point guard action there. When Fred VanVleet was off the court, Flynn got about 5 minutes, and sure, I'd like to see Doughton, Delano Banton, one of these guys maybe get some run, but Scottie at point guard is something I'd like to see have a bit more of a leash to it. A little bit more sample size before we really rule it out as something that doesn't work. And Joe Wieskamp being able to space the floor for Scottie Barnes having the ball in his hands could be a perfect sort of complementary piece to the Raptors' young star. So I think Wieskamp could be nice. And from what, again, extremely small sample size, what we saw of Joe Wieskamp to the public, the organization, the scouting, they get to see all the practices and stuff, and they're watching the 905 games and that, right? So they have a better feel on it for me. But from what I saw from his stint with the Raptors, didn't look like a big liability out there in the defensive end. I thought he was moving his feet well, right? Was playing within the Raptor system, didn't get blown by, guys like Matt Thomas in the past were just completely getting cooked out there when they were trying to guard on balls. So Joe Wieskamp, I was impressed, that he was a solid defender and his ability to knock down the three-point shot, along with his athleticism, a guy that 42-inch vertical could be a guy that might have an impact for the Raptors team. Are we going to be overjoyed and say, hey, it's going to be a game-changing acquisition? We can't jump the gun on that just yet, but definitely on paper's a guy that fills some needs for the Toronto Raptors. So hopefully he's able to get out of the Nick Nursery and, have some opportunities. I mean, Armani Brooks got some decent run in the rotation last year when he was signed and given his opportunity. So maybe Wieskamp will get that as well. If he can consistently knock down the three-point shot, it could be encouraging for this Raptors team. But how are you guys feeling about the 75% three-point shooter in the comment section below? Let me know. But the next thing we're taking a look at, I don't have the chapter graphic up for it, unfortunately, but the president of basketball operations for the LA Clippers out here throwing some shade at what it feels like to be either Fred VanVleet or Kyle Lowry, as he was asked about the Clippers trade deadline and said that the Clippers were in conversations for, quote, a true point guard, but adds at the end of the day, you play through your best players. Went on to say that if there was a point guard that could be in our top 8 or 9, in terms of guys in the rotation, we looked at those guys. Someone who wouldn't be played off the floor defensively, play on ball so they're not ball dominant, and gotta be able to shoot. So, there's all those things, and the Clippers were definitely in conversations for guys like Fred VanVleet, for guys like Kyle Lowry. It was widely reported, two guys close to Raptors' hearts, even if some people are a little bit disenchanted with Fred VanVleet, especially after airballing that shot last night, right? The comment there just seemed to rub some people the wrong way, at least to me, just off first read and stuff. Guys that could be in our top 8, we definitely looked at those guys. Is he subtly inferring because they didn't acquire Fred VanVleet because they weren't willing to give up Terrence Mann, who, yes, has had like one good playoff game in his career, or he's a bit of a scrub. They didn't want to give up a pick for him. So he's saying that Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry couldn't be in that top 8 or top 9 guys if they were to make a deal for it. I don't really know at that point, but saying got to be able to shoot, got to be able to defend. Just a weird comment there for Lawrence Frank making those there. I don't know. Some Raptors fans are speculating. I don't want to read too much into it, but do you think the president of basketball operations of the Clippers throwing shade? Saying these guys are being a bit overvalued by their other teams, the Miami Heat and Toronto Raptors. Let me know. But another guy that has been on Toronto Raptors' radar is Terrence Ross, and this is pretty interesting as he has now been bought out by the Orlando Magic. Now, T. Ross is obviously a dude that I've been a big fan of. Riker has immortally hated, but I'm a big T. Ross fan. Throws down those dunks, knocks down those three-point shots, and news came out. We had a little Woj bomb come out today saying that Orlando Magic guard Terrence Ross is finalizing a contract buyout, allowing him to become a free agent. Ross has played several seasons with the Magic and now will get an opportunity to join a contender. And that has led some Toronto Raptors fans to say, hey, maybe we could bring back the Raptors' former Toronto Raptor three-point shooter because he's kind of exactly what we need. For everything I said about Joe Wieskamp, T. Ross is a veteran that does all those sorts of things. He's a very hot and cold player, but when he gets hot, man, T. Ross can really cook, and him coming off our bench to space the floor could be key for this team. I mean, you look at the stats for Terrence Ross this season, they're pretty solid. That's some Fred VanVleet stats right there. But 8 points per game, 2 rebounds, shooting 38% from the three-point line, and his minutes have been taken aback a little bit as they have a lot of young guys they're trying to run through now at this point for the Orlando team. And a couple seasons ago, he's bounced around between that 8 to 15 point per game mark every single season. So be cool if he could be acquired by the Toronto Raptors, but a couple things, unfortunately, why it might not happen. And I said we'd come back to this tweet thread from Blake Murphy. Basically says that this likely takes the Toronto Raptors out of the buyout market. Their roster is now full, and while they could clear a spot, as they have a $3 million exception, and they're quite close to the luxury tax right now. So that exception is coming from the Otto Porter Jr. injury as he was declared out for the season. So they get the disabled player exception. So they can bring in a player and still stay under the tax. Went on to say that for those asking about Ross, Ibaka, whoever, yes, technically the Raptors could cut Delano Banton or Juancho Hernan-Gomez to fit a minimum under the tax, but it would be tight. Would be a little surprised if Banton wasn't included in the Pirtle deal. That it would be surprising if he'd end up getting cut. So Blake Murphy doesn't really see it happen, but for how underwhelming the cruise missile has been, I think if Terrence Ross is any bit interested in joining back with his former team, and he always has nice things to say about the Toronto Raptors, right? Toronto should be willing to cut Juancho Hernan-Gomez. I know he has that guaranteed contract for this year, but he has not been good this season. So T. Ross coming in fits more of a need, where Juancho hasn't been knocking down his three-point shots, right? For as cool as it is to have a movie star on your team, I'd much rather have T. Ross on the minimum, and we could still squeeze it in underneath the contract line. So would be nice to pick up T. Ross, but again, Woj's comments saying that T. Ross can now join a contender. The Raptors considered a contender. I don't really know. I'd like to think so, but that's an internal optimist in me. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys would like the Raptors to go all out for T. Ross. The final thing we're taking a look at is a wrong chapters popping up. Christian Koloko sent down to the G-League. So the Raptors, with the acquisition of Jakob Poeltl last night, Christian Koloko got absolutely 0 minutes in the game against the Utah Jazz, and A little bit unfortunate because we like to see that center rotation of Pirtle and Koloko have that lineup there. But news has come out from Blake Murphy as well. He's headed back to the 905. The Sunday and Monday, there's a back-to-back before the All-Star break. So Koloko will play in those and rejoin the Raptors for the February 14th pre-break finale. So don't think this is Koloko his end for the Toronto Raptors now that we acquired Jakob Poeltl, but he is going to get some run, going to get some minutes. So he's continuing to develop rather than stagnating on the Toronto Raptors bench. But let me know what you guys think about all these moves, everything that's gone down today in terms of the NBA. But Toronto Raptors, subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. And if you guys are interested in sports betting, definitely check out the Cool Bet app. Sportsbook, there are sportsbook regulated in Ontario, available all across Canada. And you can bet every single Raptors game, NBA game, just really any sport in general. And, you got special odds. The Raptors, get some good odds on them right now in terms of you think they'll be able to turn around the season with this Joe Wieskamp signing. If you think the Raptors can make a little run in the playoffs, you can bet all that in terms of futures using the Cool Bet app. And, in games, we got a game against the Pistons tomorrow. So hopefully we'll be able to turn things around. But folks, appreciate everyone that's checking out the videos and supporting the podcast. You guys are the best. I'm signing out.